What is the most serious thing on your mind today as you sit here today? What would you say is the most serious thought
With
that you're
my brand or in the state of the
just
world?
in the state of everything, not your brand? We don't have to get into that yet.
I personally, for me, I don't really trust any information I'm getting from anywhere because I feel like you'll read something on one platform or one newspaper, and then you'll read it from somebody else's newspaper. And then, like, even the next day, it could be retracted because you find out that the video is faked or that it was false information. So I don't know, even watching the news because I watch it every
Yeah.
day. It's really important for me. And I just have gotten to this weird point. Like, I've always had like, obviously, the news, depending on what platform you watch it on, you're going to get some kind of skewed version of it. But it's gotten so extreme that it's like, okay, this piece of news that seems so vital for this moment, I can't even trust until a few days later to see who retracts what and what really happened. So to me, it stinks because I don't feel like I really ever know what's going on until like weeks later. But
Yeah.
yeah, everybody's jumping to give their opinion or their perspective on what's happening. And here I am, and they're like, how do you feel about it? And I'm like, I don't know.
Martians landed.
Yes.
Wearing Prada suits.
Yes.
Drinking Henry Seltzer.
Yes.
Chewing juicy fruit.
Yes, and?
Your branding here.
Yes, brand.
Your message here.
Yes, and?
A verse about
Yes.
your product here.
Yes.
I'm Hirsch Redfin.
Yes, and?
I'm a message therapist.
Yes.
And I have a podcast.
Yes, brand.
That's right, that's it.
Yes.
We'll help you fix the world.
Yes.
Or your bottom line.
All right.
Your bottom line.
Get it. I get it. Welcome to the Yes Brand Podcast.
I am here with Morgan DeNicola. She is the executive director of the DeNicola Family Foundation, which incorporates the four passions of world health, humanitarian recognition, conservation, and cultural diplomacy, all of which are very interesting topics to me. And for this special season of Yes Brand, I wanted to talk to people that really went beyond the scope of the kinds of guests I've had in the past. And Morgan definitely fits that profile. Welcome to Yes Brand Season 7.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited. I know we've had a few previous conversations and they're always a good time. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. Yeah. And as people can tell from the beginning of our conversation, it's just a good time. We're just laughing, just a bunch of laughing and singing and dancing. Speaking of which, I wanted to read a few more of your, I don't know, I was going to say qualifications, not really qualifications, to your qualifications for being on this program. You are the vice chairman of the Humpty Dumpty Institute in New York, which works around the world to inform and foster dialogue amongst critical stakeholders on key global issues. That's why I ask you, some of the things that are on your mind today. They do this through their programs with U.S. Congress, the Department of State, United Nations, international embassies, engaging young people, supporting cultural diplomacy, and working on humanitarian programs. And Morgan has not only done that, but also has been active in congressional delegations to the United Nations. And we're going to talk a little bit about the UN. She's been to Beijing for the Global Civilization Forum, to Malawi, and where she visited the Amatofa Care Center. The level of poverty kicked off a fundraising initiative for Morgan, and it was called the Cosmo Cares Mobile Healthcare Van, named after your dad, Cosmo
Yes.
DeNicola. There is even more that we're going to put. I did, one of my first guests had so many things on his resume that I sped it up he was my college roommate. He was my old college roommate, but was so accomplished as a surgeon that when I had him on the show, I just ended up speeding up the bio because it was ridiculous. But there's a lot of other stuff that you do. But I think now that the audience heard a little bit about your work and what you focus on, maybe share with us a little bit about who you are, because we're all about not just the brand as a foundation or HDI or any of the specifics. We're interested in you as a human being, kind of the 360 view of your brand. So maybe tell us a little bit about what motivates you.
Absolutely. I came from family of entrepreneurs. My parents started businesses when I was very small. So I remember me and my brother getting taken into the office on the weekends and us just goofing off with fax machines and photocopiers while my parents did serious work. But to us, it was playtime. And I kind of grew up in that atmosphere where my parents worked a lot and they were able to build kind of this incredible portfolio of different businesses. I went away to college, did normal college kid stuff, had my fun, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I went to school to be elementary special education teacher, realized I didn't think that I really wanted to teach. So I spent a good amount of time trying to figure out what it was that I wanted to do. I went into marketing for my parents' companies, even though I said I would never work for my parents. Went into marketing, was able to take one of my first trips to Africa in the place of my father. He wasn't able to go, asked me if I'd go and bring back as much information as I could. And it completely changed my life. I realized I wanted to be involved in helping people. And from that point forward, it was more, how do I do that? And my parents wanted to be actively involved. They had always been very into charity, and so we all kind of put our heads together and we started as Cosmo Cares, just this little group that was doing small programs locally. And we came up with the fundraising for the mobile medical van for the orphanages and the villages around the orphanage in Lesotho. And from there, we kind of slowly grew and we created an official foundation that became our family's foundation. And I started to head that up, and I was able to also get on a few boards to learn how different groups were doing different programs in terms of culture or conservation. And I kind of started eating it up and fell in love with it. And it became my passion to want to help people. And I just became a sponge, learning from business owners to artists to athletes, just kind of absorbing how everybody does things, but also the needs of everybody and finding those crossovers and how we could all kind of realize that we connect, because it was always a big thing for me to make sure people feel seen and heard. I think we all in this world, no matter how successful we are or family, or we go through these moments where we feel kind of alone, that we don't know what we're doing or who our people are. And so it became a goal for me to not only help people, but help people feel seen and a part of something that's bigger than us as individuals. So that's kind of my quick who
Yeah.
I am.
Well, what resonates among other things is the being seen piece is like it's for whatever reason it just really resonates right now. I feel like I can't remember a time where there wasn't some community or other that was underserved or underseen or not considered anywhere in the world. This exists, but it feels like right now it's not just about, oh, I want to recognize a certain group or I want to be recognized. It's more that we have to recognize one another. Like it's a mutual thing. It's being seen and seeing the people with whom you're sharing the world. That is one of the reasons why I think the work that you do, you know, has that feeling of we're really kind of trying to fix this world, make this world better because it's an everybody on all hands on deck type of thing. Now, you grew up around this philanthropy as a way of life kind of thing, but where did that come from? What was germ of that?
My parents didn't start out with a lot. I mean, they both left home really young and had to build everything that they had. I remember them telling me stories that they were living off dollar chicken pot pies for weeks on end, to multiple jobs. My dad was working and going to school. And so they always instilled that kind of, that you need to work really hard. And even a lot of people that are successful started out really kind of humbled, and they always told me it's so important to stay humble, and anything that you have that's considered a success should be shared. And that's something that they had always said to us and me and my brother, and it became something that I always felt. There was one point in my life, my parents said, "You make us nervous because we feel like you're the type of person that would literally give the shirt off your back for another person and leave yourself high and dry." And I was like, I am. It just was something that I always felt like any little bit of joy that I had was meant to be shared. What is the point in having something if you're not sharing it and sharing that joy with people? So it was something that I feel like I always had, but I think I always had it because I was always watching my parents in a lot of ways. And the people that, even from a young age, that I became friends with were very humble people. And they really had to work for everything that they had. And always seeing that and always being around that and that salt of the earth, it made me realize how blessed we are. And those blessings, in a sense, continue when you contribute, and you should be contributing to the world around you. And your success continues in a lot of ways emotionally from the inside. And that, to me, always fed my passion.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of this ingrained from the moment I could understand my parents to everything that I wanted to do. I wanted to share. I wanted everybody to be a part of anything that I did that I felt successful at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the other side of that is how do you, if I start a company and I say I want to hit a revenue goal or I want to have this many people buy the product or whatever it is, it's actually kind of easy to know if I've hit my KPIs. But when you're doing this kind of work, how do you set goals and how do you gauge impact?
Gauging impact is a little harder. For me, it's the sustainability. So if we're doing a program and teaching people how to keep it going without us, that's successful. But it's also because in the world of philanthropy, you can burn out. You can get really depressed because every time you walk away from something, something else pops up. For me, it's seeing a positive impact on a person. That's why we say boots on the ground. We have to be involved and see and feel, because it's the second you see a kid light up or a family breathe a sigh of relief because they can feed their child for the week, you did something right. Now, if you can do that and make sure it's something that can continue and you can continue these relationships, but not only that, bring in the community with ideas and keep the community kind of thinking and engaged, and also not allowing them to burn out, because it's when you come across the same issue over and over and over again, you need people that will uplift you and go, okay, let's do this. Let's keep doing this. I see you. Let's come up with ideas. Let's make this a team effort where we all come together and try to resolve the underlying issue. And I think that's where it gets a little bit more difficult, because you have to be willing to listen to the community you're trying to serve, because they're going to tell you more about where they believe their underlying issue is, rather than you coming in with preconceived notions like, this is how I'm going to resolve your problem. But if you don't really listen to the community, you're not really going to know what the issue is. So I say success is if you uplift the community, you get them all talking, you get them coming up with ideas, and then you supporting these ideas and helping activate them, helping being the driving force behind what the community really believes they need, and then seeing the joy and that continued effort to try to make things better for everybody that they encounter. So that continuation, being
Yeah.
that fire for people.
Yeah. In any story, there's a protagonist. Let's say you are, or the people you serve are protagonists in this story. Who is the antagonist? Like, who are you challenged by or up against? What are some of the forces that you find yourself being up against?
Preconceived notions or concepts. I think a lot, especially if you do anything globally, a lot of people have their own notions of why things go on in other places and will kind of fight you and be like, well, why are you helping them? We need help here. It becomes them versus us, not realizing that it all is interconnected. The success of another nation is connected to us. And I try to always explain that, but I think it's people. People fight people. And
Mm,
I think that's a big problem, and whether or not it's from a place that they are also hurting or feel like somebody else might get something that they deserve or should go to them and their community. It's people fighting people rather than people kind of being like, oh, good for them. Or,
Yeah.
oh, this gives me idea from my community. Or let me, rather than being angry that this community got something, why don't I contact that community and we can work together? It becomes less of a let's learn from one another and work together, and a little bit more, well, an aggression towards each other, I've noticed.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem and an unnecessary problem in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And anytime I hear about aggression or hatred or prejudice or conflict, I feel like the root cause is some kind of fear. There's some kind of fear of something. And that's probably what you're noticing, is that they're unnecessarily afraid that there's not going to be enough for them, or no one is going to care about them, or I'm taking it from. It's the same idea in business where, I believe that in order for myself to win, somebody else has to win also. And that's what a win is. Like if I win and my client loses, then that's not a win for me. And if I win and my client wins, but someone else is harmed, that's not a win either. It's really about multiple wins. Like you said, sustainable win, wins that carry forward. If someone else is helped by your helping somebody, that's the icing on the cake. Now, how about NGOs versus government organizations and the United Nations? How do you navigate that world? I'm kind of ignorant of that world in a lot of ways, but it fascinates me.
It's a little tough because you need to know who you're going in with. So if a lot of the groups that I work with are embassies, so Humpty Dumpty files for grants, grant opportunities. We have to do the same thing everybody else does. Is you'll see an embassy in a specific country will say, but a US embassy based in a foreign country. So it's US government in a foreign country says, this is a program we would like to do. And then we see if we can facilitate that program and we apply for it. It's has to be kind of engineered in a way with every administration. So the way you use certain verbiage, it has to follow whoever is in charge at that time. So with the US government, you have to constantly shift in accordance to whoever's in charge. And I think that's tough for a lot of people because they stand firm on their belief structures and kind of get aggressive depending on who's in office. For me, I don't personally, yeah, I mean, I say things behind closed doors, but in my professional life, I then have to pivot and say, okay, this has nothing to do with me. This has to do with the programs that I want to accomplish moving forward. So you have to then kind of know the country you're going into, use the proper terminology, the proper verbiage, and make sure that it's something that you honestly can do. So there's that versus our family foundation that we don't have to abide by the current administration. We're self-funded. We do obviously take donations, but we kind of get to say, well, we want to do these programs and we're going to do them how we want to do them. And personally, for me, I love being able to do both because I think
Yeah.
you learn from both. And there's something to be said to be able to learn from the opposite side. It makes you a little bit better at pivoting in crucial situations. But I think the most important thing, depending on who I'm in a room with, I do my research on these individuals, but with a grain of salt. Like I said, I don't have a whole lot of trust for everything that I read on the internet.
Yeah.
But I learn, and then I come in as a blank slate. I come in open to whatever they want to talk about, and I feed off of that energy. So it's kind of a sit, wait, listen. Okay, this is the vibe. This is how they want this to go. And then you kind of are like, okay. And you put your own personal touch in there, dependent. It's knowing your audience, right? It's
Well,
knowing your customer.
I was going to say, Morgan, that's where I see that marketing bent, that marketing background. I can see why you kind of gravitated toward that, because you actually said it, and I'll restate it because I want the audience to get it, that it's listening to other people and watching. I learned it in stand-up comedy, watching other comedians go up before me and kind of getting a sense of the crowd, reading the crowd and knowing what their vibe was. So when I came on stage, I was addressing their vibe. I wasn't like shaking up their whole world. And that's very much what we do in branding and marketing is know your audience, know what they're looking for, what problems they're trying to solve. And you can't find that out unless you listen. And so I think there's an element of diplomacy that you clearly bring to your work and why you're so effective. I think it because you are, it's come through in everything you've kind of said so far. This respect for other people's point of view and other people's position and what they want to accomplish, and assuming the best of their intentions. Now, sometimes the intentions are opposed, and you just have to navigate that, and having some independence through the foundation is a great thing. There's also, though, I think one thing when I talk to people, that there are people who are deeply concerned about the state of the world, but their jobs or their chosen careers are not really in the philanthropic area or even in the nonprofit. I mean, my son actually works for a nonprofit, but the nonprofit he works for focuses on a very specific area. But he has deep concerns about the world, and it can be very agitating. And we started this conversation talking about the news and how the news can tear us all kinds of different ways and confuse us. But when you are actually engaged in that stuff for your career, you're maybe close enough to it that you feel you're at least trying to have an impact, but you're also so close to it that you can't just say, well, I'm going to focus on work today, because your work is the world. So it's like you can't just
Yeah.
say, oh, you know what? I'm going to throw myself into my work. Okay, what are we working on today?
It's very tough. That is something that you deal with a lot in the philanthropic world. And I think that, and working with different NGOs and working with different members of government, is you'll hear people kind of come at you and be like, well, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And even sometimes it's like friends and, oh, why would you work with this person? Why would you work with that person? And it gets very exhausting because there is no way to turn it off, because that is your life, your livelihood, your day to day. And then there is always somebody eager to chime in, even outside of your day to day work. So having those issues with it being kind of personal, very personal, and you can get downtrodden and sad. And I think that's why it's so important when you have those like depressed moments, the boots on the ground, the seeing somebody light up, the seeing and the feeling, the good. And when you get in that dark, sad spot, you're like, okay, but I remember this moment, and you just kind of hold on to those. And then you're like, well, I want to be the solution. I'm not just going to say what all the issues are. We're all aware what the issues are. Now
Yeah.
let's get to work and find those solutions. And I think that's the big difference with a lot of people.
Yeah. And it's interesting because in hearing that, it's very, very much the way any entrepreneur has to kind of approach their day to day experience. It's a long road. There's ups and downs. There's trials and error. You can't control the outcome. You can only control, the input, the output. You don't know what's going to happen at the end. And you have to carry each other. You have to kind of help each other along and remind each other why you're doing it. And all of that is part of what you're doing. And now to kind of slide over to this bigger, personal brand picture of it's hard when you like, the audience heard only part of your resume. There's other projects and things that you're involved in, and we'll have all that stuff in the show notes because there's a lot of good stuff in there. But, when someone says, oh, what do you do? It can be challenging to encapsulate it all in one sentence. But what I would ask you, without asking you to do that, I would rather say, well, if you had to pick one thing that you're focusing on, even if it's at the moment, one goal or one thing, one pin that you have in there, that's super close to your heart, what would that be?
Oh, right now in the state of the world, my big thing is trying to teach people the benefits in their personal and professional life of being diplomatic, because I think a lot of people think diplomacy is just for lawmakers and governments, and people fail to realize that it is in everything you do, from business, philanthropy, relationships, friendships, family. And we're losing this. In my opinion, it's an art. It's an incredible art that brings so much strength to everything that you can do if you have the ability to be diplomatic, that I would love to continue to teach people, one, why it's necessary, two, that it can be this superpower for you in anything that you want to do. So right now, my main focus is trying to encourage people to figure out how to utilize being diplomatic and how they can really benefit from it.
I love that. I mean, because people will wrongly interpret diplomacy as weakness. In fact, to me, diplomacy is deal making, right? You have to be somewhat shrewd to be diplomatic. The thing about being diplomatic is that in its highest art form, it's not about being submissive. It's not about saying, oh, I'm just going to keep the peace at all costs. That isn't what it is. I think I know from my own just upbringing and my dad was an attorney. He was a very good kind of facilitator and people person and with very strong values, but very logical and thoughtful and analytical when it came to arguments. He enjoyed debate, but he didn't get anything out of, shouting someone down. That wouldn't make any sense. That wouldn't be a win. And I think that the notion is that the people who are shouting don't hear anything, and people who have given up on negotiating or discussing are going to lose either way. No one's going to win. And we're seeing it, and we're seeing it in the world with conflicts, with armed conflicts, with nuclear arms, and all of these things. I mean, that's kind of one of the funny, it's darkly funny, but that we need that the purpose of nuclear arms is to deter us from aggression.
Using it. Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
We have to
exactly.
be so afraid, that someone will use it against us that we would never ever use it against them. And to an extent, that's proved to make some sense. And to another extent, it's terrifyingly not necessarily the case. But the point is, the diplomacy piece is, really, really important. I mean, if we can learn to talk to each other, to get back to what we were talking about a little while ago, if we can learn to talk to each other, we can learn to see each other and be seen. And you have to get face to face with people in order to communicate. One of the things that I tell clients about their branding is that it's not enough to hide behind your brand or your company. You can have a company name, you can have a brand name. It's not about your name, it's about what the beating heart is behind there, that is a value system that is going to drive a conversation. And people need to know that. They need to know, what does it mean? What is it
Yes.
what's behind the name? Even if, and in your case, I think we talked about this in another conversation where you're kind of in the role that you are as executive director, you're stewarding the family foundation, which must be something of an awesome responsibility. How do you manage that piece of it?
I cry a lot. No, it's very stressful, as you are, the goal and the hope is to represent our family. And the amazing thing about our family is so incredibly diverse, so different opinions, backgrounds, religions, ethnicities, that to me, that's beautiful. And to be able to represent that, you have to constantly also be reminded that you are one voice of this. And also following, now that I have taken it over from my father, his voice was very different from my voice. But I still hear him. We're very similar in a lot of ways. And if I need anything, like we talk every day, there is not a day that I do not talk with my father. He is actively involved in everything. It's a big weight and responsibility, but it's awesome. It's awesome to try to represent so many different types of people. And to do that, it is what I'm trying to do in philanthropy. It is what I'm trying to do in diplomacy. You're trying to understand and represent drastically different people. So it's a challenge, but an honor, but also exhausting.
Yeah.
It is very exhausting.
Well, yeah. And I think that anything worth doing has a lot of moving pieces and gets complicated. And the more you do things, it seems the more complicated they get. They don't get simpler. And I have a lot of regard for people who build a family business or a family foundation or both and have the wherewithal to manage all those personalities because that just isn't easy. I've gotten off easy in that way, and that my companies that I've run have been very small. And even when I had a little bit larger firm, I was still I kept everything pretty, it was what I would call like an open plan living space. It was like the divisions of what people were doing or responsible for were flexible because I wanted to be fostering creativity so that even the, CFO was creative. And that had certain problems as well because ultimately sometimes you have too many artists and not enough bean counters, but it really can be challenging to just think, okay, I have to figure out who can do what is the best use of this asset or this or somebody's talents. And that's where, like, again, the CEO type of persona, you have to be a leader who listens, who has more than your own interests at heart. That's kind
Yes.
of that's kind of who you have to be. So let's take a couple minutes and share, if you will, to people who are wanting to they might want to own a business. For profit doesn't mean it doesn't help people. For profit doesn't mean it isn't purpose driven or mission driven. And most people these days seem to have a feel for the world in some way. If they're industrious enough to build their own business, as an entrepreneur, I'm talking about, they tend to have some bigger vision. What would be your advice to people who are starting out with a big vision and maybe it's a little daunting to figure out how they're going to get there?
I did the same thing with people are like, what do you want to do? And I said, save the world. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's not going to work. And it was said to me to very much narrow my scope. And that was when we got our pillars, our passions. So I like to say you have to narrow your scope on what it is you are incredibly passionate about and start there. And then figure out the baby steps. I'm a runner. I want to run too. I want to fly. And I forget that everything needs a structure and a plan. And also to keep yourself as close to being on plan as you would like to be. I know I've been trying to launch my website now for months and haven't really kept to that plan, but now luckily I'm back on track with everything. But I think you need to narrow your focus on what you are really passionate about and what your ultimate goal is. And if you have a lot of, just think about the easiest step to take. Okay, I need to come up with a motto, or I need to figure out what my voice and tone is. We were talking about that. And find that first. Okay, check that off the list. And it's really about those baby steps, because when you try to just go at it with all of your passions, you're going to be torn and pulled into a million places. So I think the best is get your strategy down, your passions down. And then I like to sleep on it, because I'm the type of person, and I know my father is too, and we drive each other nuts with this. We'll be like, yeah, let's do it. and then we'll sleep on it. We'll be like, wait a minute, what about this, this, and this? And then we'll kind of take a step back. And so I think the planning, give yourself time to also digest and bounce your ideas off of people, because again, multiple perspectives will really help you figure out the best route to go down. I know my initial plans for my brand and everything, that I went at it alone. Now that I have 3, 4 people that really are coming at it from different perspectives, have helped me narrow my focus and be on a better task and better verbiage and a lot better vision. So I think it's finding out what your passion is, what your ultimate goal is, baby steps, and having a team that you trust, but also sees things differently than you. Don't have a team of people that just see it exactly as you do, or what's the point of
What's
having
the
that
point?
team?
Yeah. That's beautifully said, Morgan, because perspective is like 9/10 of the law. You need someone to give you feedback. And I have that in my life. And for a long time, I think when I was young, feedback read as criticism to me. Feedback read as, you hate me, or I suck, I'm terrible. And it takes a while to shake that off. That was, I don't know where that came from, that sensitivity, but you know, that's been a very important thing for me, for our kids, and all that kind of other opinions are valuable. Other opinions aren't a problem. Other opinions are part of the process. So that's a wonderful thing to
They're
share.
tools. I
Yeah.
always say that every person, I used a analogy on one of the podcasts I was on, and I said, imagine your life as you own a garage and your life as you fix things. Every person you might meet will hand you a tool, and it's your choice to take it or not. So I always say I'm more than willing to listen, because somebody is going to give me a tool that I may not need right now, but there could be a problem that comes in the future that I'm going to be real grateful I had gotten that piece of advice, that tool, or whatever it was that person gave to me. So I look at every person as there's value in it. Why not listen to them, even if it's the opposite side of your view or whatever it is? I think there's value in other people's opinions and viewpoints.
Yeah, I love that. Is there anything else you wanted to share? I'll give you the last word.
Not really. I want to encourage everybody to find the beauty in the world. And if you can't find it, then be it. We all have things that we can contribute to the world around us, and we should be out there doing that.
All right.
If you liked the show,
Yes, and
it worked for you,
yes, then
subscribe and leave a
yes, friend.
5-star review.
Yes, friend.
Tell all your friends.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Did I make it clear?
Yes, friend.
Get your branding on
Yes.
before they're gone.
Yeah.